Welcome, everyone, to the Paranormal Pride. I'm your host, Denise Pridemore, and tonight I've got a great guest. You may recognize him from the network. He's on the Bill of Rights Network on Sunday nights for No BS. So we're going to welcome Chris Houston. So if you're wanting to hear the truth, you're going to hear the truth, and it's going to be unvarnished. So welcome, Chris.
What's up, guys?
So before we get started, the first thing I want to say is I want everybody to say a prayer for everybody that's affected by the tornadoes over the weekend and that are going to possibly be affected again tomorrow. That if you live in a trailer, go someplace else if you can, possibly. It's just it was bad. I mean, it was like they were talking on TV about Ohio having so many tornadoes already this year.
Tornadoes are rough. Last year, our tornado took out all of Mount Gilead, left me injured with a broken rib and almost threw a stick through my chest because dumbass me has chased tornadoes for so long. I was right out in the middle of it trying to save my house. But they're bad up here this year and last year.
Right. And so apparently Oklahoma and Iowa said, here, Oklahoma, or here, Ohio, hold their beer, and decided for it to be bad. Now, Susan and Mike, Susan's in the chat. Hey, Susan, they chase storms as well. We don't know if they did. They didn't need to, really, because, I mean, Springfield, Missouri was one of the epicenters. They probably could have just sat on their porch.
It's a unique thing to do. I started chasing tornadoes when I was 17 years old because I had a storm chaser train me. I stopped doing it because of family and so forth. But after you've done it for a little while, this sounds nuts, but Susan may even be able to relate. It's almost as if you can smell it. You can walk outside, you can smell it, you can look at the sun, look at the weather, and you can go, yep, there's a nader out there somewhere. I just got to find the damn thing.
I don't know. It was so sad hearing about the people who passed, and then watching it live on TV the whole time, so it was really scary for a lot of people. I mean, we've watched tornadoes off in the distance and stuff, but it was just sad. So I just want people to be aware of the weather and watch the Weather Channel or some other national news or your local. Do not pay attention to TikTok for weather. I mean,
do not pay attention to TikTok for any real news.
Yeah. But one of the things, I mean, down here, one of the weather guys lives up in Bruton, Alabama, and he's only on YouTube. But everybody here loves this guy. He does a really good job. He covers all the things that our regular news here doesn't cover. So even on YouTube, you might be able to find some really good weather forecasts.
Well, there are some fairly well-known people that are using the YouTube format, just so everybody's aware. You'll start seeing something called TPA that's coming out here this summer and next summer. It's going to have some pretty well-known conservative voices on it that have already started their own stream channels and have been under controversy on and off and so forth. So YouTube can be used as a good source. It can be used as a bad source. The problem is learning how to manipulate the source because YouTube's owned by a liberal mechanism. So you really have to watch what you say and what you do, or they'll just cut your feet and tell you can't do it anymore. That's the biggest problem with most of these social networks these days, to be frankly honest. It surprises me I haven't been pulled off of Facebook yet.
I'm there too, but luckily I'm not as mouthy as you are.
Well, I think the only thing that keeps me alive is, believe it or not, I was in one of the very first test groups for Facebook. That's years and years ago. I was just graduating high school and had some friends that happened to be in the same college as Zuckerberg, and they were putting this new format together, and they needed test subjects. So I was one of the first 250 people to actually have a Facebook account. And I think that's the only thing that keeps me alive right now is because I've been with Facebook since its birth. So they kind of just leave you alone. And every now and then they just throw you a thing going, hey, we took this off because you said too much, but it's still on your page if they want to go there.
Okay, so it's not technically gone.
It's not technically gone. They don't remove anything that I do. They just tell you, we've removed this from everybody's feed. So if somebody wants to read it, they have to go to your page. So if I say something they don't like, they just remove it from all the feeds and leave it on my page.
Oh,
Of course, I abide by some of the rules. I don't spell out cuss words because I just don't believe in it. Kids read things, you know.
yeah.
And I try not to get too graphic. And I make fun of everybody, which is the beauty of it. Because I think that if you actually dig your nose in deep enough, the extreme Trumpsters are just as bad as the extreme liberals. You're looking at some of the things they're saying going, my God, you sound like an idiot. So
Extreme
I make fun of
anything.
everybody. Extreme anything, especially over Facebook. Especially over Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, people that tend to go to the extreme, you have to be careful about anyway.
Well, old farts like us, we're used to it anyway. Because how many years have we dealt with this with the paranormal? I mean, it's new to people in politics, and they're going, "Man, I'm getting sick of it." But we've been dealing with this sickness and this absurd drama illness for 30, 40 years over Facebook and social media. It seems like, and when it wasn't on Facebook, it was in person. They talked behind your back and your nose, and one team would hate you and try to stab you. The other team would love you to your face and then say something bad about you the moment you left the room. It's always been a constant thing in the paranormal with weirdos and drama and nut jobs. And
Oh yeah, a lot of people, you could get whiplash back in the day just from the way people talking about you. You hear just something and
yep.
but no, I guess so far I've been lucky. I haven't heard anything negative about me, but I don't care. I mean, if I wanted to go to high school, I would have finished high school. Okay.
I
Just
tell
saying.
everybody the same thing. Those people that know me love me, but it's my job to be hated and be the asshole because I'm that guy that will tell you the truth, regardless of what you think. Even this week and next week, I'm going to cover some things from different angles. But just in the past month and a half, I've seen drama for volunteering to do something so bad that I backed out on somebody that's claiming that they're getting ready to be back to film a motion picture when I know the dipshit doesn't have that money. He's just bragging about it. I hate to say that. I see this all the time in the paranormal. People that lie and continue to lie and continue to over exaggerate and continue to claim that there's certain things that they're not. And it makes you laugh when you sit back and you just don't care because you're just a guy or a girl and you're just who you are. But you're looking at all this going, my God, do people actually fall for this crap?
and what's sad is they do. And that's one of the things about the paranormal that gets me a lot is that the people that are so gullible.
I played a part in it, so I hate to say that, and I'm going to get bit in the tail because I'm playing another 6-episode part here coming out in another month throughout TV that you guys will see me on and off. Don't panic. I'm not a regular star. I'm the guy in the background that they put on for 5 minutes going, so here's what's really going on to piss everybody off. But so I don't have a major part.
That's the part that, it's, we've been watching, it's a repeat from years ago, and it's magic secrets revealed.
Well, and there are a lot of them, but people don't realize they've been watching mainstream and they repeat the process from mainstream, and it's done great for the entertainment industry and the recreational industry. But what people don't understand is, guys, we were taught these techniques, okay? From television, we were taught these techniques. They were created by people that created reality TV, designed the situation, and a lot of what you're seeing on that television is not the truth, regardless of whoever's been on TV. And I love you guys that have been on TV. Some of you are my good friends that I don't talk to, but maybe once every 2 years. But you and I both know the truth. Let's just be honest about it. I'm out of a contract now. I'm going to tell you the truth. And that is 90% of what you do is entertainment. We know this. That's why we did it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's not reality. And it's one of the things that really pisses me off because there are real sciences. I teach it. I've sat in universities. I've talked about it on a regular basis. There is concept to the paranormal. There is fringe sciences. There are things that have been done, but to the modern industry, trying to get people to understand that because they've dealt with so many years of mainstream is a pain in the ass. To be frankly honest with you, and excuse my language, you can feel free to bleep it out or tell me not to, but um, the paranormal is phenomenal. It's everything unknown. Right now, I just helped fund Jay Prather, who is going through a project that he's filming to show people, and his whole concept is connecting the brain and the mind to the quantum physical level to see if some of these fringe sciences work. That's what we should be doing, right?
Right.
Instead, we're running around with night vision cameras chasing ghosts that may or may not exist, claiming a mythical version of what we believe a ghost is instead of trying to prove what a ghost could be.
Yeah, factually.
Yeah. And it's kind of a sad thing when you come from a scientific background, a university background, and you've talked to professors and you've talked to theologians. It's a sad thing to see that at one point this was all science and research. This wasn't Ed and Lorraine running around like people made out. Ed and Lorraine were showboats themselves. And don't get me wrong when I say that. I loved Lorraine. I've talked to her several times. She was a great lady. But they knew the gig too. They knew how to showboat it. They knew how to sell books. And they knew that's how they made their money. The real paranormal world you never hear about. You never hear about the Dicks, the Mikes, the Bobs, the Joes, the Stevens that spent most of their time in university books trying to decipher and break certain fringe sciences that were unknown that have now been found to be known today. And that's really what we should be concentrating on more, that people don't concentrate on at all because nobody knows it's there. They just chase ghosts because it's fun.
Well, it is a team building event.
Well, and I'm not going to knock the industry, and I'm not going to knock going out to group places, and I'm not going to even knock people that create teams. It's just being that old school person that used to be a part of the way it really was. It's a different situation. Odds are you're never going to find a real ghost joining a team, going to locations, or even helping people. You're going to find logical reasons if you put your mind to it. Psychological conditions, environmental conditions, all these other things that have planted it in the mind that people think is a ghost or a demon or otherwise.
So Steve Foster has a good point. He said there's good and bad in every field. Unfortunately, the bad in the paranormal field is just louder while the good is busy doing their thing.
I don't like to call the paranormal a field because it's not really a field. A field is something that's educationally trained and used and learned. Be it a expertise or a skill or so forth. And I know people hate that word expertise, but the paranormal is an interest. Other fields, many other fields have played in the paranormal. Over 2,000 skilled trades, educations. And there's nothing wrong with you saying, I'm in the field of archaeology and I study the paranormal, or I'm in the field of audio engineering and I'm in the paranormal, right? Get that? But the paranormal itself has never been a field. It's been an interest because it's unknown. If something's unknown, you can't call it a field. You just can't. But you can call it an interest. And there's a lot of things that apply to the unknown beyond ghosts and UFOs and Bigfoot. There's all kinds of things. I just answered all that for you, Steve. I just answered all that.
We can be expert like me. I'm an expert in data. I can manipulate data all day long and have it tell you the story that it needs to tell you.
I've studied 32 years of theology and audio engineering. If you were to ask me a question, I would probably know more than anybody else who hasn't studied 32 years of theology and audio engineering. That means that I am an expert in that field because I know it. Just like I'm an expert in business consulting and PR because I've done that for 40 years. So people look at me as being that way. So because you know that, you can utilize that as long as you utilize it properly. Okay? What do I mean by that? Because I know audio engineering does not mean that I know what Denise knows. I may not know squat about what Denise knows. So we work together, and this is the way the field used to be. You'd have a psychologist, an engineer, a theologist, a priest. All these people would work together knowing that I know my part, but I don't know the rest. So I'm going to give you my information. We're going to put it all together, and we're going to see if there's a case here. If there's not, there's not. If there is, there is. If we come up with a logical conclusion, it is what it is. These days, it's not that way. Everybody just argues, I don't like the word expert. Well, this is going to piss people off, but I'm just going to tell you tough shit. It's that bad. You go to an auto mechanic because the auto mechanic knows how to fix a car and you don't. You go to a surgeon or a doctor because a surgeon or a doctor knows more than you, even though he may not. You trust him to because he's a surgeon or a doctor. It's the same way with the paranormal. Nothing's changed. Nothing's different. It's just mainstream wants the excuse of this is what I believe, so it must be true. Well, here's the reality. Just like real life, some things you believe isn't true. That's just the way it is. If you can't deal with it, you don't need to be in the paranormal. I'm a blunt guy. I'm called the asshole of the paranormal for a reason. Now, that doesn't mean I'm telling any of you don't be in the paranormal. I'm also going to tell you the positive side. I'm going to tell you in 32 years of traveling all over the United States, talking to many cultures, many theologies, sitting down with people you can't possibly imagine and seeing things I cannot explain. It is a phenomenally wonderful place with great people, even in the mainstream. That's how I met Denise. That's how I met Carl. That's how I met a lot of people at a lot of these conventions. I love the people in the paranormal. I think they're great people. You just have to work past that idealism that orbs are real and blah, 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 this and blah, 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 that, because it's all a bunch of nonsense that, believe it or not, TV made you think.
Yep, there you go, Steve. You got right to it. It's the television programs that are driving most of the nonsense that you see out there now. And yeah, that's true. I mean, even the way people investigate tends to go more towards what they see on TV.
Everything. Mm-hmm. Everything. The night vision cameras, the K2s, your idealisms of even EVP are all generated from television. Now, I'm not telling you some of this stuff isn't real, ITC, EVP, even checking electromagnetic fields, but that's not the way the real paranormal worked. In the old days, if I wanted to check fields, I had gauges stuck in the ground, gauges stuck in the water. I had motion sensors and electronic sensors for temperature all over rooms connected to some sort of system just to see if I could find some sort of data. If I could find that data, I could prove that data. Audio engineering was the same way. You would deliberately create Faraday cages in whole rooms. You would try to decipher what the audio signals were. You'd do a lot of different research. Most people don't even realize that these spirit boxes will pick up bounce back signals. Most people don't even know what a bounce back signal is. Bounce back signals can go back 50 years and get bits and pieces, and you'll think you're talking to a ghost the whole time. But you're not. You're talking to an old radio signal that some guy died on 50 years ago.
Is that what explains me being able to hear Mexican radio in Baltimore late at night on AM radio?
Yeah, actually, it does.
Mexico.
Yeah, bounce back theory. What happens is the signal's bounced up. It hits the moon or an object or an orbital stance. It bounces back and it can travel great distances. Sometimes you can hear the whole signal, but the older the signal is, the more it's traveled out into space, hits something and bounce back to you. So eventually a signal that's 50 or 60 years old ends up being part of this conversation. So you could literally catch that signal and go, am I talking to you? And you may hear yes, but are you really talking to somebody? The answer is no. You're talking to a bounce back signal.
How can you prove? I'm one of those data people. So how can I debunk that if it should happen?
Hours and hours and hours of listening. I proved this with Joel and Jill and one other person, Sheila, one time. We thought we were talking to a ghost at a location. I said, let's give this time. Sounded like it was a preacher. He would answer some basic questions and he'd disappear for a little while. So we stayed up and listened to this only signal in this room. And I'm like, I'm going to stay here. Joel was like, okay, I'm going to do it too, because I'm curious. The other girls walked around and came back. Here we hit about 3:15 in the morning. And the full bounce back signal from 42 years ago came back. just like your Mexico signal, right? Only it comes back every time for you because it's closer and still being broadcast. That signal was over 52 years old. The guy gave a full name. I did the research and found out that he's a reverend, had his own radio show, and died 52 years ago. We caught that radio show in full. We caught both people that we could hear talking back and forth that we thought we were talking to. So it takes hours and hours and hours of listening. Once you finally get the broadcast signal, researching it, seeing if you can find out if it was a real signal. And now you end up finding out, okay, I found it, right? And some of these spirit boxes are the same way. I've debunked several of them now. One of them I held off on even explaining because I love the person that created the box. But he's tweaked the box to pick up satellite signal. Once you pick up the satellite signal, you also get erratic responses from the satellite signal, which makes you sound like you're talking to a ghost, right? I started getting curious about this because of alien implants, believe it or not. I have a friend that's a professor that he says that implants give off specific radio frequencies from satellites, making him question whether an alien actually implanted the person or a government implanted the person, believe it or not. He's got several books on it. So I have a friend that claims she has an alien implant. Every time we got the box close to her during a certain period in time, it would pick up the satellite signal. You'd hear it. So I got curious and I tore the whole box apart. I started looking, and then somebody associated with this gentleman screwed up and admitted that they were using chips that would pick up satellite signals. And I was like, okay, there it is. So I did my research. It's picking up a satellite signal, doing a bounce back, causing frequency jumps, which gives you the insinuation you're talking to a ghost.
And so Steve says, what about things like cell phones and CB radios? Because they're radio waves, they're going to interfere.
Yeah, and there are ways to isolate individual fields. So the way frequencies work is when you're cycling through a frequency like an old stereo and so forth, you're concentrating on FM and AM. But now we've gotten so advanced with electronic technology, we can also tap in on all the other things like CB and so forth. So that's why you see all these little tweaking knobs and all this other stuff where you're going back and forth on a lot of these boxes these days, because these people know that in their software and their chips, they can design it this way. You don't need keyword elements to pop out words anymore. All you need to do is be able to cycle those frequencies long enough, and somebody's going to pick up something and believe it's a ghost. So you have to decipher all that and find out what's going on. And then you have the human psyche on top of that automatically starts registering it. The moment I register it, and I got 3 other people in the room, they register it. Now we have a ghost in the room. We start seeing things and hearing things that's not there. And that's what a lot of mainstream does. This is why you can actually lead this. I've done this on several tests. You can go to a group, right? Everybody goes to conventions, and eventually you sit in a room with everybody and you play the spirit boxes and so forth. You can lead that group. Now, what people don't understand is some television stars early on were taught how to do this. And I could easily do it. One time when we're out in a convention, everybody get together with me and say, hey, I want to see how you do this. I'll go into a room and I'll lead that group and they'll believe a ghost is there, because I was trained to do that by media and TV. But the point of all of it is TV is a game, guys. It's not real. No matter how many people tell you it is, no matter how much they want it to be, even when they try to make it real, you're going to get cut, you're going to get edited, and you're eventually going to get told, nope, you got to do this instead of this. Got to say this instead of that. And there's nothing you can do about it. So you either play the game or you walk away from the game. So the older you get, the more you end up like Mike Russicker and several other people. You start realizing this stuff, and you start doing the theoretical, right? You start moving into things that are very interesting, and hopefully you get to travel a little bit. This year, they're sending me over to Dracula's castle just for a historic point of view.
I'd go in a heartbeat.
And I love stuff like that. I love to be able to go there, talk about the history, talk about the haunted environment, and talk about the psychological and non-psychological, and be able to be that person like some of the people on the History Channel and so forth, that you're just kind of guiding people through and going, it could be this. It might also be this.
Yeah. Well, a friend of mine coined the term paratainment. And, along with that, we're talking we've been talking TV. Okay. And we know that there's there's a bunch of production people, period. There's a bunch of production people. So, like, I know everybody remembers it's just Zach and me and Nick and our cameras, and that's all that it is in this lockdown. It's only
It
the
ain't even
three of
close.
us. Okay, when we showed up, it was four of them then, supposedly. Zach and Aaron, Billy and Jay. Supposedly only the four of them. What about these 12 people in the motorhome behind us?
Or the black skirt covered cameras that walk around behind them that nobody knows about.
Plus the other people, when I was in the house, it was just the three of them, three of them, as opposed to four. But outside, there was this entire production crew.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And so in no show, except for maybe a couple on YouTube, are there only the people that they're saying that they have on camera?
YouTube people are misunderstood. Okay. I have a friend,
Mm-hmm.
Tyler. I don't talk to him much, but Tyler's an adventurist that's delved into the paranormal. He gets reamed all the time because he goes to locations, and he's an adventurist. So in those locations, he goes to the claimed demon house or something like that. Well, in his opening, it says the claimed demon house. But if you watch the video, it has nothing to do with demons. He's walking in and he's being an adventurous. He's going, so guys, I'm at the claimed demon house. Many people have claimed there are demons here. Let's walk through and take a look at it, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
So he's given you a history of the place in his own point of view. He's not over exaggerating and he's not overacting.
No, he's just telling the truth. I mean, it's just like the Sally house. Okay. What did they claim about it? That there was a little girl spirit in there that hated men. Okay. We proved that wrong. Was there a demon in there? Don't know. I'm not that person. Was there something bad in there? Yeah, there's something bad in there. But what do I believe it was? I'm not going to go there. It's just not going to go there.
What people don't understand about a lot of this is science has caught up, but people don't want to admit the science has caught up. So let's use the Sally house as an example. When the house first had its occurrence, there were questions if you do enough research on the Sally house to determine whether the house was real or not, or even the videos with the original investigators factually videoed most of what they put on later. Okay. Now, some of that was actual recorded scientific proof that things were going on, but it was unexplained scientific proof. What we don't understand is, and I just had this explanation just so everybody understands, and this is something Jay's looking into and more people should look into, is if you get into science, the first thing you learn about physics is everything is consistent of neutrons, protons, and matter. From the human body to everything. That means everything is connected both dimensionally and multidimensionally. Now, science has proven this. There are alternate matters, there are non-alternate matters, but they all work in conjunction with each other. So if that is the case, when something builds up a belief system, then it also builds up the matter and the energy involved within that particular area, which means you are witnessing something, but are you really witnessing a ghost, or are you witnessing what we created in the first place?
Kind of like a tulpa.
Uh-huh.
So there's a lot of theories out there as to, was there some witchcraft involved? Was it wishful thinking? Was it all these other things? I mean, I have a mountain of evidence, or not evidence, research on the Sally house. Historically speaking, okay? Who lived there? When? What was it reported to be haunted? How come it was never reported to be haunted prior to 1994? So that's one of the things, considering that all these people died in that house prior to 1994, why weren't they showing up before? I mean, I got all kinds of questions, when it comes to this. Okay.
Well, that's what people should be doing, because it shows you truth from fiction. The Amityville house is the same way. There are a dozen different houses. If you start digging into the research of some of the haunted locations, you start asking questions that should be asked. Then if you do the science and the math, you realize what's really going on.
Yeah, the guy that killed his family, sorry, he was probably high on some kind of drugs, ate a mushroom, something.
And the other thing that people don't realize is, and I've gotten a lot of grasp from this in the past 16 to 18 weeks, is everybody uses that term paranormal investigator because they love to be the investigator, right? Well, I've been a private investigator. I've worked with the police department. I consulted with the FBI. I worked with the ATF. Okay, so here's the reality of things. If you've never studied how to be an investigator, all you're doing is research and study because you're fascinated with the paranormal as a hobby. You're not a real investigator. Once you're a real investigator, you start asking the real questions. And that usually is what truly is going on here. You have to observe your environment. You have to do your research. You have to take deep looks. You have to put pieces of a puzzle together. And when the questions start coming up like that, then you have to consider the fact that maybe the whole thing is bullshit.
Believe me, I go these routes all the time where, I'm not going to say that people are okay. Let's go to, here's a show, Paranormal Caught on Camera. Okay.
I've been on that.
Oh, well. Okay.
You're fine. I could tell you the background on that. I can tell you what they put on with me was not what really happened. I told them that. They decided to run with it and tell a whole other story.
Well, that's the thing. Like, that's one of the things I tell people when I was on Ghost Adventures. They changed my words. There were words I didn't say that they put in my mouth. I mean, I said those words, just not in the order that they put them in. So, and if you watch it, you can tell. But on Paranormal Caught on Camera, everything's paranormal. That's why when they redid that show with Ozzy, and Ozzy kept saying stuff like it's ball lightning or that's fake or whatever, I'm sitting there, I'm loving it because here's somebody who has no preconceived notions of what is paranormal. And he's calling it out as the truth, but yet Jack is there eating it up, going, it's paranormal. I cannot stand when any theory is thrown out without any proof.
Well, that's what frustrates me because there are literally thousands of fringe sciences that people have never dug their nose into. And what you are digging your nose into out there, guys, with mainstream, I'm going to tell you 90% of what you're looking at has already been explained. It was explained almost 70 years ago in most cases. You just don't choose to do the research. There are scientists that were out there that were skeptics that have been doing this. Some of them very famous people that started the process, Harry Houdini and a half a dozen other people, that continued throughout a scientific process for years. The goal was to debunk all this crap. And they did it very successfully. However, along those lines, some of the scientists also found some curiosities that explained other things that created fringe sciences that we deal with today. But it's easier just to say it's a ghost or it's paranormal, or in some cases, nope, I talk to ghosts and I'm a psychic medium. No offense against psychic mediums. I know some that I trust very well that have done some things I can't explain. But there are logical, scientific connections to all this. People just choose not to pay attention to them. The easier route is, no, science just doesn't explain everything, Chris. Science just doesn't connect everything. Well, science, like everything else, isn't exact. It's going to be wrong. And one day when we stumble across it, we're going to create an atomic bomb. Welcome to Oppenheimer and half a dozen other people. They didn't think it was possible. And then one day they blew something up.
Yeah. Just a few years ago, we were all blowing shit up with our thoughts that people said that we were on the fringe, if you recall. When we were saying, do your homework, people. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to this stuff, it's when they say that everything's paranormal first, second, or third, and they're not using any logic
or educating themselves or spending the time educating themselves through other people that are educated. The reason I have so much knowledge is not because of me. It's because I got so curious that I went to colleges. I asked professors. I spent time digging and meeting people that were phenomenal. And then I moved past that and went into religions and spent time on a Native American reservation, spent time with the Jewish people and the rabbis, and managed to interview people in Rome to find out what a real exorcist was and what a real demonologist was. And I'll tell you, that was tough, guys. It took me 4.5 years to get the approval to get on a phone to talk to the real professor of demonology at the Catholic Church in Rome. So it's not easy, but when you start digging in, you find a phenomenal place that just amazes you. The history, the interest, the science, the people. It's I would never take it back. I would never take it back. I've loved my life. Could tell a story that I've tried to write 1,000 times, but it just doesn't seem to come out.
Why not?
It's just I've done so many things. It's hard to not. I just keep going. I want to add this. I want to add that. I want to add this.
Oh, the spider web effect.
Yeah. Because I've learned so much and talked to so many fascinating people that are professors and normal people. I've met some people that have had experiences that I can't explain.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some of myself that I can't explain. I've seen things that would curl you. I mean, they would curl the hair on your back would go straight up. And
Well, we have a question here from Steve that might be very interesting for everybody. So, what do you think of poltergeist and poltergeist activity?
There's a twofold theory to poltergeist activity. The first one is, could it actually be something physical, right? People think a poltergeist could be a demon, an evil spirit, things along those lines. Now, scientifically speaking and realistically speaking, poltergeist activity is more an infraction of the mind. What do I mean by that? I've explained this 1,000 times in easy terms. So the mind is a phenomenal place. As an example, if you believe something will happen and you convince yourself something will happen, it will happen. How many times have you been to a seminar and somebody told you all you have to do is believe and you will succeed? I'm a prime example of that. I have failed in businesses 1,000 times. I've lived in my car with $5 to my name, and I've had over $35 million in the bank. The reason is I have faith that I will succeed, and whatever is guiding me will help me in that process. Now, I'm a religious person, so I call it God. You can call it whatever you want. If you've ever been in a telemarketing room, which I've managed several times, you find out that if one person has a bad day and he spreads it, everybody has a bad day. Ironically, in that same bad day, you will have computers and phones break down. If you're in a seminar where everybody is excited and they know they're going to succeed, or they believe in God, or they believe in this, or they believe in that, then it rubs off on you and you come out believing you're going to succeed. And it's a bright, wondrous time. Everything looks different outside. Everything sounds different. Everybody's happy and good things happen. This is because the energy around you manifests itself. So why can't that manifest itself with anger as well? Now, we have put this to the test in science. Ohio State University has done it. Harvard University has done it. And we have proven for some strange reason, if you have particular people of certain ability and they get angry, you can actually make things fly off of shelves. I myself have been angry in my own home and had things fly towards me. Was that a ghost, or was that my anger pushing out on itself? I believe it was more myself, to be frankly honest with you. So it's easy enough for the mind to do this. We just don't know it happens because we're connected to everything else. Same thing goes with psychic mediums. Are they really seeing a ghost and talking to a ghost? The reason they're talking to that is because they're tapping into that existing energy that's already out there, that's connected to everything in the first place. So is that person really standing in front of them, or was that person standing in front of them 25 years ago? Or 25 years in the future?
I don't know. So Ron asked why all the cabinet doors and drawers were open in our house. It was back in 2017, the week before the eclipse.
In order to answer that, I'd have to know more about the situation. Now, originally, my first haunting happened the same way. Okay. My dad wrote it off. We just moved into the house. That night we heard a loud bang. My mom had put up all the dishes. She pushed in the chairs. We come downstairs and all the dishes were pulled out. The cabinets were open. They were stacked evenly on top of the table in the center, and all the chairs were stacked on top of each other and moved to the left of the room. Now, my dad said, oh, that's probably just a kid that came in, but the door wasn't open and it was locked. Now, we had more activity as it went. So what really is going on here? Well, I found out years later that the house was built on a property where a kid had passed away. Another mother had killed their child next door. There's a lot of negativity in that area of Morrow County. There was actually a cult in that area of Morrow County somewhere along the line. So if the negative energy is still there, the negative energy can still be present. Let's say in your house you had the eclipse, right? It happened during the eclipse.
Well, it happened the week before.
The week before. Energy builds up theoretically in quantum physics, and then you have what you call ripples. Sometimes it's other dimensions running into each other. Sometimes it's our own energies building up in particular areas until you have a force that explodes, right? We can harness that sometimes. Sometimes we don't harness it. It's just nature. What happens sometimes is just natural occurrence of the residual energies, perhaps around yourself, your items, your property, your location, your neighbor's location, things along those lines. So what happened to me, even though I can't explain what happened later during that period in time, if I were to relate it to poltergeist activity, I would say it's probably the residual energy and the effect thereof that happened. Elemental is a tricky thing, Steve.
Let me read it out loud so everybody can hear, in case they're just listening. Steve asks, what about the third theory? This is just as energy or perhaps an elemental. So go ahead and put your thought now, Chris.
Elementals are tricky. The reason we believe in elementals is because of mythology. Mythology and history is the same way with ghosts passing on and so forth. It's been passed on from generation to generation to generation. So the reason you believe an elemental is real is because Druids believed elementals were real. And that dates back over hundreds of centuries. But are the elements alive? Or is Earth just simply creating its natural environment and we're caught in between? So when you say elemental, or do elementals exist? Well, I guess it depends on what form of country you're in. I would say personally, I don't believe they do. I don't believe there's a natural person that controls lightning or trees or so forth, but I do believe there's presence in myth of fairies and fae and so forth. It's just they're misunderstood. I think this is all an energy effect. I think poltergeist activity is all an energy effect and a creation from the mind. And the more somebody believes that, the more you can advance it to the next person, the next person, the more you can connect those people and the more you can create that particular event. Again, in science, we have proven this. It's just something that you can't control. So there have been controlled studies. People just don't take the time to look for them. Harvard University did one. Yale University did one. Michigan University did one. Pennsylvania State did one, believe it or not, and several others. And some of these were shut down.
Yeah.
And they were shut down for good reason. Because when you conduct these experiments, if you find out something like this does exist, it can also be a very dangerous thing. If that makes sense.
So then what about aliens? Bigfoot. Where do they fall into all of this?
Bigfoot is a myth. I'm just going to be upfront about that. Bigfoot is a myth. There's a reason we have never found Bigfoot, never filmed Bigfoot, because Bigfoot doesn't exist. Now, it is extraordinary that you can go out into a woods and you can hear things and see things. But I know hunters that are 40 years old that have been out there by themselves. And they'll tell you when you're in that woods long enough, regardless of where you are, you will hallucinate, you will see things, and you will hear things. And that's the effect that we're having. But it's such a natural occurring effect that it makes you want to believe. So you believe, right? And you see things where it's not there. So I don't really believe in Bigfoot. I won't believe in Bigfoot until I see Bigfoot. I am on several Bigfoot hunting programs here coming up. And I've done some YouTube experiences with people going out to look for Bigfoot. I'd love to be wrong.
That's how I feel about Bigfoot. I want to know is how can I, am I supposed, I'll go back to my normal question on that. Should I be terrified to be in the woods or not worried at all?
Well, I think depending on where you're at in the woods, would depend on whether you're terrified or not. But aliens are a whole different situation. Okay. Knowing the clearance that I had for a little while, it was a very, very small clearance, by the way. And the people that I talked to had very, very big clearances. Some of what you're experiencing with UFOs is a man-made experiment. But there are some other things that make you question whether aliens exist. Now, I believe it would be naive for people to think that we are the only intelligent being in a space that is never ending and continuing to reproduce. So is it possible that aliens could theoretically come to the planet of Earth and observe us? The answer is yes. Right now, they would see us as we see animals. So it would be logical that they'd bag and tag a few of us and monitor us and keep an eye on us and not interfere with us at the same time. I don't think they're here. They're showing up to invade. I don't think that there are reptilians under the sea. I don't think that any of this other crap that people talk about is real. But but I do.
Ron said, "What about flat Earth?" I'm like,
oh, don't get me started on that.
We're nuts.
Now, I do think that we have been visited in the past. I do think that if you go through history, you can see that and you can put two and two together. I do think that that can link to modern religion today. People won't admit that, but it is very plausible. And I do think that those modern religions, which if you read long enough, all connect, may have something to do with that.
Yeah. I mean, just go back to the starseed stuff.
Well, and every religion talks about several things. They talk about beings coming from the sky and creating Mother Earth or the Mother Tree. They talk about the separation. They talk about the war between family or between segments. They talk about the gods and the demigods. And they talk about how some of these gods came down and how they lived among us and how they taught us. All the religions are the same in the core value. There's got to be a premise to that. So could they have been here in the past? Yeah, they could have.
That's probably the reason why I tell people a lot, go read Joseph Campbell. If you're into religion, that's one of the things to read because it'll show you how everything basically came from, they're all the same story, just told by a different person.
They are. Once you start reading religion and theology, you start to realize that every religion, all the way back to the beginning of looking at them, all start the same way and end the same way.
Yeah. They all start with creation and they all end with destruction.
Yep. And they all talk about beings that don't come from this planet, coming from the sky and doing specific things, and humans getting caught in between it, and so forth. So
and there's always a hero.
And yeah, there's always a hero. There's always a villain. There's always a struggle between family. There's always demigods and ranks in this process. It's all the same.
And there's always the journey. And if you're paying attention to what we're saying, it all sounds like Star Wars. Because it is the same thing.
My favorite links are in the questionable with theology and mythology, believe it or not. As an example, Merlin. Merlin spans over a 250-year history. And in some of those, he's in multiple places, named the same name at the same time and that people should not know, right? There's no way you could travel clear across the globe that quick and still be Merlin within that 25-year span of religions. So who is Merlin? Thor's the same way, by the way, guys. Thor has been located in multiple locations during the same mythological time frame as Thor.
So does that make them God?
I don't think it makes them God, but I think
or at least God adjacent.
I think it makes premise in missing history about things we don't know, where they could be a form of demigod that came from somewhere else and could travel quite drastic distances. And maybe some of these wackos that always talk about intermingling between human and alien, maybe some of that did actually happen, like religion said in the first place.
Yeah, Nephilim.
Nephilim as an example.
Mm-hmm.
And, even some of the religions, the Northeastern religion that talks about Merlin, not the England religion, but when you go further out, states that that they have text that Merlin spent time in a great city amongst the sea, and that's how he was taught some of his things. Well, you could relate that, as you've seen probably on Ancient Aliens, you could relate that to Atlantis, because they also say in that text, Merlin says he came from that city as it fell.
I mean, there's so many things that that we're talking about now.
Now let's talk about the second part of this.
Okay.
Let's talk about the second part of this. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you from a military standpoint. About 96. Say hi to mommy. About 96% of your alien claims are manipulations from the United States of America and other governments. Okay. Black projects and skunk projects, which started in 1929 and worked all the way up until now, are a common thing in the United States of America and other countries. Some of these projects are man-made and are man-created and are man-designed and covered up through UFO sightings. Would you be surprised if I told you Roswell, New Mexico had nothing to do with aliens?
No, I wouldn't be. But
everybody still searches for aliens at the Roswell, New Mexico base when that's not really what happened. Now, I can't tell you the truth of what happened, but I have spoken to people that could, and I believe what they have to say.
It's marketing.
Well, what most people don't understand is during the Roswell, New Mexico incident, the United States Navy had a very unique situation. We were just learning things that we still do today on social media that other countries are utilizing and have advanced on. We were starting to learn that misinformation campaigns can be utilized very quickly to send you over in left field. And if you control those misinformation campaigns, you have power. So it's very easy to cover up any mistake.
Oh, yeah. Look here. Everybody look here while something else
happened over here.
Over here, yeah.
So the reality is on Roswell, New Mexico, and most alien sightings during that period in time is we were dealing with a very crucial time between Russia and America. And a lot of that was consistent of new objects, spy planes, and other situations, including spy balloons and so forth. Now, was it actually a balloon? The answer is no. I can tell you proof positive it was not a balloon. However, when we're dealing with all of that, if it's one of ours or one of theirs, and we cannot tell America that it's one of theirs, even if it is, because then that panics America. And now we're worried about more, and everybody's going crazy on the streets, and they're stealing from the stores, and they're doing crazy shit. It's humankind. This is the same thing the government does now. So you cover it up. It became an avenue so great that you could utilize the wackos and the nerds at conventions and continue this cover up and do whatever the hell you wanted in the United States of America and get away with it. It didn't get caught until we ended up with a scientist that we fired admitting that he worked for the government and dosed people with LSD. Now people started going, could there be more conspiracies? And they started looking a little deeper and finding out some of these things the government may do. We've done some very terrible things in the United States and other governments that people never know about. There are actually, believe it or not, biological labs in major cities that you have no idea are there, as an example, experimenting every day. If you're going to do it in the backyard and then point people over at Roswell, New Mexico. So a lot of this stuff is government cover-ups and government situations, and then you manipulate it and you build it by adding the Bob Lazars and a half a dozen other people that claim these projects are real, that you fed bits and pieces of information that was true to make it sound real, and just let the psycho run with it.
That's how cults got started.
Yeah, well, and it's a great military ploy. We've used it for years. Other countries have used it for years. Now other countries are using it against us. But it's also a two-road access. Now, do I believe some UFOs exist? Yes, because I have had a UFO encounter that I can't explain. But ironically, I had the UFO encounter less than 45 miles away from one military base and an hour and a half away from another military base. So did I really have a UFO encounter, or did I simply, knowing that they test things here and here, have another encounter that I got caught in the middle of?
So, while we're here, because Tom, I know, may be going back to work, we'll ask his question. He goes, have you had any blah 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 blah? If you had any paranormal powers, which one would you like?
Well, theoretically, you could say I do have one. Two. Even though I don't believe in them. First off, I tell everybody this, and I've had even television show personalities refuse to ever go to a location with me again. Some of them never made it to TV because of this situation. Ever since my encounter, and now that I have my faith, I have seen things most people can't see. And if there is something supposedly demonic or evil in that location, it will know I'm there, and it will show up, and it will make itself present, and I will carry on a conversation with it. And most people go, no, that's bullcrap. But if you've ever been in an investigation with me with one, you'll see it. You'll see things you can't explain, and your mouth will drop, and it scares the piss out of people sometimes. But I also know these things can only hurt you if you choose to let them hurt you. So I just choose to not let them hurt me. Sometimes I actually think it's kind of funny, as terrible as that sounds. And the other thing is, everybody has their own form of psychic ability, so to speak. So I tested this at first by myself. I was okay with it. And then I surrounded myself around particular other people that I can still do. When I go to a haunted location, so you guys know, I don't want to know anything about the location. I want to go in before everybody else, and I want to take a look at the location. Ironically, for the past 7 times that I've done that at new locations, I've always came up with something that nobody should know. It advanced when I brought in other people that have empathy and other things, so that you can connect this energy together and you can realize that everything's connected in the first place. So if I were to answer your question properly, Tom, I wouldn't want any paranormal abilities. Superhuman abilities, maybe. I'd love to be Professor Xavier. That would be the coolest crap in the world.
Who is that?
Charles Xavier is the leader of the X-Men. He's crippled, but he has incredible mind power.
Yeah. He was the one in the wheelchair, right?
Yeah, he's the one in the wheelchair. A big comic book.
Patrick Stewart.
But to have the ability to stop everything by thinking about it, or controls people by thinking about it, is a magnificently incredible gift if you use it right.
Yeah, if you used it for good.
But that's also why I couldn't be a superhuman, because if I was Superman, I'd put an end to all this shit real quick.
There'd be a lot of stuff that wouldn't be happening if I had a similar superpower.
Yeah. So I'd end up a lot like The Boys in Amazon, where I'm that superhero that gets pissed one day and just kills millions of people.
Oh, yeah. But he was a dick.
Yeah, I wouldn't be that big of a dick, but Stan Lee says something, with great power comes great responsibility. And that's true, because the more powerful you are, let's face it, if somebody really was Superman, he wouldn't be the American Golden Boy that they make him out to be in DC.
No, I would see it more like The Boys, to be honest, because of the fact that you can only be so good for so long before evil takes over.
Well, and even if you have,
because you want everything, then
even if you have good intentions, it narrows down to the philosophy of The Walking Dead. If I have good intentions for my people, that sounds great. But eventually, no matter how good your intentions, you're going to do something that you regret. There's just no way around it. Humans are a terrible thing. I love humanity and I hate humanity, the same thing. Our natural instincts are to fight, betray, hurt, steal, kill. And when you're trying to protect people from all of this, whether you're even a president of the United States, or whether you're a normal person or a superhero, somewhere along the line, you're going to make a decision for the benefit of those people that is not going to be pretty for everybody else.
Yeah. It's not going to be a popular.
Yep.
So
And I
Tom,
know with
there
me
you
it
go.
wouldn't be. I know it wouldn't be with me because I'd be Negan. I wouldn't be as perverted as Negan is in the comic books and in the TV show. But I guarantee you, if the world ended tomorrow, I'm the guy that grabbed the gun when everybody else is looking in the sky, walked next to my neighbor that I know is trouble, shot him in the head, and looked at everybody else and said, he was going to be the first one to steal your shit. Follow me. You live, don't, you die. What do you want to do?
Well, let's hope that it doesn't come down to that. So. And Steve Foster, I think he's got it right on the hit it right on the head. Misinformation is the prime example of Area 51. Whatever is being done there is now being done somewhere else, but the circus is still being performed at Area 51. I will say there's a friend of ours we believe works in Area 51. He takes a plane to work every day from Vegas.
You have to. You have to take a plane and then take a bus. When I visited Area 51, I had to take a plane to a specific location. Then you get into a bus and they bus you to the location if you're as low as I was. And when you get into the location, you're only allowed to go very specific ways, and they do have it color coded.
Yeah, luckily I think his contract is up, and I can't wait to talk to him to find out what he can say.
He won't be able to say much. Sadly.
I know. But the thing is you never know what people are going to say in a private room where there's no microphones.
And 51, I believe, from the people that I've worked with that did spend time there in contracts, some of them, visited, some of them never made it there, but they knew people that knew people. I believe that 51 is more a hub spot, right? So it's well known in that area that there are skunk projects scattered all over the place. In fact, if you do a Google mapping of the area, you will find roads that go to mountains everywhere around the locations, everywhere, miles away from Area 51, sometimes 80, 90, 100 miles away from Area 51. That's where your real skunk projects are going on.
Yeah, and there's no gas stations, so they got to be prepared. We've been out there. We've been out that way a few times, but what about Area 52? Do people even know, that people know that Dugway exists, that they call it Area 52? Is it possible that Area 51 is just a jumping off point to that? Was Wright-Patterson the first Area 51?
Wright-Patterson did have a, I wish I could show you. I don't know where my photos are. My dad was a guard at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base during this whole situation, and I've got some unique pictures that were released later that he shouldn't have took, but he kept them. Wright-Patterson was a research base for a long while, a very long while. And what most people don't know about is Section 107 here in Ohio. There's also the Blue Fly Project here in Ohio. There's research bases scattered all across Ohio people don't know about, which is why Ohio was a centralized area for UFO hotspots for years. But Area 52 does exist. There are several other locations past Area 51 and past Cheyenne Mountain that do exist, that have different code names. It's the government's crazy rat race. I can't really tell you much more than that because some of it I'm even under contract for, and I'm a minor contractor. Some of these people have been doing aerospace engineering with these people for years, and other things. I don't even want to know what half of those other things are, to be honest with you.
So we have a friend in common, Frank. What are your thoughts on the Aberdeen Proving Ground?
I believe Frank saw something.
Oh, I do too. I love Frank.
I don't know what he saw.
Yeah, that's why I'm not going into what he saw. What do you think about the Aberdeen Proving Ground? Because this is an area in Baltimore, just on the outskirts of Baltimore, huge, where you cannot go past certain places, even in the bay, the Chesapeake Bay. You can't go past here. There's somebody, there's no fly zone, but nothing else can get through there. A lot of the experiments that they got from other countries during World War I and World War II were brought to Aberdeen Proving Ground.
The Aberdeen Circle. Yeah, I believe there's a lot of things that were researched and created there. And this happens all the time, just so you guys, if you can find it, research the Kentucky Yellow Jacket, the Yellow Jacket Project. Now, I can't give you a lot of details on this, but the Yellow Jacket Project was a communications project that used audible and sound frequencies to see what they could do with human beings. They created satellite towers in Kentucky, and they tested this project unbeknownst with communities within a 20-mile radius in every direction. Now, I actually have documentation on all this because I talked to the gentleman that used to work, several people who used to work there, and I never released it because of my own personal contracts after I ran across it. So several people during this Kentucky project, 20 years after the project, have said, I was followed by several people because I was in the paranormal, and I saw them go to a location here, which is where the Yellow Jacket Project started. And I got close to that, saw a car pull up to me. I blacked out. I woke up 4 hours later in front of my house or on a bench 2 miles down from my home in one case. One person said I woke up in my own bed with my car parked. I know I took that car down that road. I know I followed him 45 miles. I had 4 other people with me. They said the same thing, and they were in their rooms. We don't know what happened. Well, you'll have your answers if you research the project. The whole purpose of that project was using audio frequencies to see if they could literally stop the mind and put you to sleep, remembering nothing that happened.
You mean like the Men in Black little flashy thing?
Like the little flashy thing. Only they realized that certain audio signals broadcast similar to a dog whistle that we can't hear can also manipulate the mind and the brain. And for split seconds, it can literally shut down your memory and shut the body off. So all they have to do is come in and tranquilize you after that. You don't remember anything that happened, and then they can take you back. They also realized they couldn't control these frequencies, right? So I can shut the human brain down for a brief period, but if I turn it up too bad, I'll kill somebody. If I turn it down too low, it doesn't work, and I can't keep that body shut off. So they had to come in and tranquilize their victims, and you know what I'm saying, and their test subjects and so forth, which also makes you wonder about the reality of alien abduction.
Right. But we do have a question here from Tom. If we do research, how do we know what we find is legitimate?
When you get in trouble.
Oh, when you get in trouble? Well, there's a couple other theories here as well. If everything says the same thing, be concerned.
Yeah.
Be concerned.
The other thing is understanding misinformation. Okay, so I was hired to do misinformation for 4 years. I used social media to do so. I worked on the Blue Projects. I was hired during the Obama administration. Anybody that is curious about that, look up the Blue Projects. You'll find it somewhere along the line. Blue 31, Blue 78, Blue 747. There's a dozen of them that they initiated during that period in time. Some of it were listening projects. Some of them were social media projects. Some of them were observation projects. My job was an observer. So if I saw something where somebody got too close as an observer, I was allowed to respond once given permission to mislead you onto another path. There were hundreds of people hired for this project, by the way. So you got to pay close attention to how misinformation is used. Step one is to find a key element that's true. And step two is to come up with something so unbelievable people will believe it's true. And then plant that in a way that people catch on and utilize this quickly. Now, you have seen this, by the way, in the past 6 years.
Yeah. I can tell you when they were sitting there telling everybody you have to go get a vaccine, and those who don't are trying to kill your grandma.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you're trying to kill. Lucky for me, my grandma's already dead. That's what I said. But you know, I know that there are people out there that can read through misinformation. And
the first key is to read through the misinformation. Then the second key is to start doing the research. You know you're on the right track when you get caught.
Oh yeah, when they start trying to shut you down, which, during the pandemic, that's what happened with me.
That's what
They
happened with me too. I literally
well,
got shut down and got called the same moment I got shut down.
a friend of mine, and I'm pretty sure you remember Rick Rose.
Uh-huh.
When he died, people came after me personally and started saying, that they hoped I died and all this other crap because I said I wasn't wearing a mask. But they
I didn't
ain't
wear a
none of their
mask the
damn
whole time.
business. The only time I did was when people were gonna throw shit at me.
I was forced to do it when I went into hospitals. I did sell hospital grade masks. I didn't sell them actually. I illegally imported them across borders because masks were being regulated and the government wasn't releasing them in hospitals, and nursing homes still needed them. So I teamed up with somebody's celebrity wife who needed help, and I didn't know who her husband was at the time. I didn't know who she was. She just reached out because she knew I was traveling across borders for paranormal shows and said, "Hey, I know you got medical access and I know you have a bunch of masks." I had, by the way, at the time, because I was in medical surplus, I had about 23,000 surgical masks in my basement, and they wouldn't let me sell them. They told me I couldn't give them away. So I just transported them across borders and gave them to hospitals and everybody else because I don't believe in wearing masks.
Well, that's good. So we've got another question from Steve, and I think that it's an interesting one. Could a secret government project be behind the hum some people claim that they hear all the time?
Maybe. I mean, it is pretty close to an area that causes humming. I had a famous FBI person that worked on the X-Files that I interviewed several times. Don't know whatever happened to him. That I asked the question about the hum one time, and he said, there is something unique about that. Were you aware that there were several governments that worked in conjunction for a United States naval project that they used in communication that used hums that would travel across great distances? And they did do all of that underground and underwater.
So did the type of hum translate to a word or something?
Yeah, it's a radio frequency, right?
Okay.
So you would use the variable hums almost like you're using Morse code.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be able to translate into if you had somebody on the other side, hundreds of thousands of miles away, that could utilize that hum. And okay, we've got this frequency, this frequency, this frequency, this frequency, and it all ended up letters, and here's your transmission and so forth. They just found out, apparently, according to what he found out, they found out it wasn't a plausible program to continue. But I mean, people are still claiming that they have the hums. So
every once in a while, I'll hear something that I can't explain. I mean, a loud, high pitched sound in my ears that I don't know what it is. Nobody else hears it, but I hear it. I
now
just
there
assume that.
are some psychological and medical conditions that I have ringing in my ears all the time. I've
It's
actually
not
utilized
tinnitus
it.
because it only
But
lasts for a couple seconds here or there. And
there's a connection to a psychological research fringe science, believe it or not. The professor ended up retiring because they told him it was nuts. But he related ringing in ears to paranormal activity. That some people, the more their ears would ring, the more activity would start happening around them. So he believed there were energy buildups in specific areas. And you know what? From personal experience, I've had it happen. I've walked into locations and just my ears are going crazy with high pitches.
yeah, I mean, for me, it just, I could see where activity would occur because it drives you nuts. I mean, I'll sit there and kind
of. I've gotten so used to it, but I'm very high sensitive because I went into audio engineering and electronics, and I can tell you everything in this room that's electronic has a different hum and a different pitch.
yes.
And I can tell you what each one of them are because I hear them all in my ears.
I mean, my computer's on 24 hours a day, so I hear it. I hear the fan. Same as our receiver for our TV. Something is always making a noise.
So it's very plausible, to answer your question a little bit, Steve, that things like the HARP project and so forth, giving off natural electronic frequency, could be a reason people are hearing a hum. And if you have any type of nuclear fusion energy or any other energy, both above or below the ground that you're utilizing, it would also distribute a hum of some sort or a frequency. And it's very plausible you could hear it, depending on how large your reactor is, for hundreds of miles in every direction.
Well, and if you live near a military base, if they're doing maneuvers of any kind, you can feel it in the ground,
Oh yeah,
in the air, the animals, all kinds of stuff, because they do maneuvers. I don't know how often yet. I mean, it seems like every month. I mean, and I can feel it in the ground. I'll be sitting here in my chair. I'll feel it through my chair. We'll hear it in the house, but when we go outside, we can't hear it. And I think it's because the house shakes a little, and that's
the
why
house picks up the vibrations.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting how that works, where outside you're like, don't hear nothing.
But see, these are the things people need to dig into a little bit, because these are the things that base off of fringe science and the things that are really the truth about the paranormal. The paranormal is everything unknown that has yet to be logically explained or known by modern science and education. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means you have to figure out why and how it exists and what it really is. And we've done that throughout thousands of years. The Wright brothers developed flight. Before that, it was paranormal. It was believed. Tesla developed electricity. Before that, he was called a maniac. And it was considered paranormal. It didn't exist.
What do you believe what's the difference between paranormal and supernatural? Besides the supernatural is much better than paranormal.
I'll take a little pride in that, because I helped write the first season. So great bunch of guys, by the way. Everybody that wrote Supernatural, everybody that worked in Supernatural, awesome bunch of people. If you ever get a chance,
I hope they come back.
There is talk about a few things in the mix.
Yeah, there is a rumor.
Yeah, there is talk about a few things in the mix. Won't be what you think, but there is talk about a few things in the mix. So hopefully that happens. Jared is a friend of mine, so I get to stick my nose in every now and then.
They're good people.
They are, every one of them. Some of them I've never met. Some of them I've only met in passing. A few of them I've known for years, even before they were on the show. But when you get into that environment, it's a family.
Ron loves Mark Shepard. He loved his character.
Would it help you, Ron, to tell you that in person he's kind of the same as his character?
That's what I said.
He was. I mean, I met him.
Yeah.
The same time I met John Cusack. And I thought that Crowley playing a dick was wrong, when John Cusack should be playing one.
Cusack is a nice guy, though.
I mean,
he's opinionated as hell when you get to know him.
Right. And there's a time and a place for political opinions. There's a time and a place for political opinions, but a Comic-Con is not one of them.
I've known John for years. He invited me up when he wrote his book, and he and I don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but I still call him a friend.
He's
way out there on some things. I mean, way the frick out there on some things.
Well, but you know what? He is very, very family oriented.
He is.
Especially
and when you go past all the craziness, he really is a nice guy.
Like I said, he seemed really nice, except for the fact that he didn't know when to shut up.
Well, the best of us are that way. So, but yeah, I mean, we got off into left field because
my question is supernatural versus paranormal. What's the difference?
Supernatural are more logical occurrences, where the paranormal are unlogical and unexplained occurrences. Now, what do I mean by logical, unexplained occurrences and unlogical? As an example, a man that was 43 years old got into a car accident in Florida. The car flipped. It was dripping gasoline. There was fire, and his daughter was on the other side. He was thrown from the car and hit a tree. Theoretically, he shouldn't have been able to walk, but he got up, he ripped the door off, he took his daughter out of the car, and he saved her life before he hit the ground. The doctor says that's impossible. You couldn't walk, let alone rip a door off. However, it did happen, and security cameras caught it. That's because the endocrines and the hormones reacted in a way that gave him superpower for a split second while he was thinking, I have to save my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
That's supernatural. If that makes sense. X gene is
Yeah.
the same way. There is a possibility somewhere along the line in the X gene that we don't know about that someday somebody may wake up and figure out how to utilize that. And we got somebody flying in the sky. That would be supernatural. And some of your unexplained occurrences in science or zoology or so forth, like Frank's occurrence and several other people, and maybe you could even consider Bigfoot, that would be supernatural. Beings that you can't explain, yet they are right in front of you. Would be supernatural. Things along those lines. Whereas the paranormal is every single thing unexplained by science and education today. So it's a vaster term, right? We may be able to explain the supernatural almost immediately once we figure it out. In the instance of that guy, he developed superhuman strength that we can prove. If you boost the endocrines and the hormones, people still have it. We've shown it. Science has proven it. Ouija boards are the same way. I consider those more supernatural than paranormal because we've proven the effect of Ouija boards. We've proven how it happens. The paranormal may not yet be proven. It's still theory that could add up until we come up with the logical answer.
And I know that in many cases in the paranormal, logic flies out the window.
Well, that's because of mainstream.
Oh, I know. But I mean, I've seen it to where I have explained how something was happening. Flashlight trick. How this is not paranormal. It is not communication at all. It is communication between your battery and I mean it's touching people. Come on. It's building up a charge and it's flashing. It's not communication.
And you're timing it.
Yeah. And if you watch it, it may vary a little bit, but not that much. And just because you happen to be talking and waiting for an answer doesn't make it paranormal.
Yeah.
It mean you studied electronics. Ron's got you guys know all about this stuff. It says in the title, trick.
Well, and you can do this a lot of different ways, right? Bose is the first time I really learned some science between audio. Bose Industries is an amazing place. If you get to
Right.
their corporate office, take it. But in the center of their office before their receptionist, they have an echo chamber. The echo chamber was designed with specific stones in a specific angle, in a specific way, with the building itself and the metals involved, not just the stone, but the metals. You'll stand in middle of this area and you can scream as loud as you can, and somebody right on the other side can't hear a word you're saying.
So they got noise canceling down to a science, is what you're saying.
They created an echo chamber that's got noise canceling down to a science. It took years to do so, but they did scientific papers on it. These are things that people, like I said, things that can be solved that people don't understand. And it happens all the time. Where most people say, does paranormal activity happen quicker near water, near limestone, things along these lines? And could that mean what amplifies a ghost? My answer is no. That's what amplifies a signal.
It's similar to one of the things that I was telling people about. They keep going, my EMF meter keeps going off on this gravestone. Well, it depends. What's the gravestone made out of?
Or the gravestone beside that.
Yes. Or what's underneath it. But then you've also got, so on one of the shows, okay, this is way back when, John Selleck, he was on Curse the Bell Witch. It's with Nick. Forgot Nick's last name suddenly. But they're in the graveyard there talking to the Bell family. And they got a camera and a millimeter. Or no, K2. Doesn't matter. But they have this camera that's very close to this meter, EMF detector, basically, on top of this gravestone. And it was going crazy.
Well, of course it was.
a whole bunch of different things were going on there. There wasn't just one camera guy. That's the thing. So you got all this stuff going on and all this energy that's right there, and all of it's normal.
And explainable.
You're right. But because of TV, it was unexplainable. But Chris Susan asks, what do you think of dowsing rods?
Dowsing rods do work and they're unique, but it's a combination. It's a grounding effect. Okay. So water, as an example, it has its own natural occurring energy that causes circulation. And your body is grounded on the earth itself. Therefore, if utilized properly with a dowsing rod, just like the people before us learned, you can find water sources, as an example. So they do work to a certain point. They're just misunderstood. And that's what people, I think, don't understand. As an example, like Denise was saying, you're in a school, as an example, and your dowsing rods are going off every time you turn left. So there must be something there, right? Really? Or are your feet grounded and the school made of limestone and several other stones that have to be stronger in that particular area? Therefore, the dowsing rods are working.
Or quite possibly there's a spring underneath there.
Or there could be a spring or water, something causing that natural energy. These are the things that are important, and why in the real paranormal world years ago, we used thousands of dollars in test equipment, right? You stick deep rods into the ground outside with test equipment. You stick things in the water. You stick thermal sensors in the building. You had to test everything, and you had all these little lines going all over the place. So that way, when somebody claimed they had activity, you could say, okay, well, no, you don't. Or that's interesting. I got a spike there from everything. I wonder why I got a spike there for everything. Was it the person? Was it something else going on? And so forth, because all these little elements add up to answering your questions that most people have lost in media and social media and so forth.
Oh yeah, it quite possibly couldn't have been a big truck drove by,
or the fact that a power line runs directly into the school right over here and amplifies through the wall systems itself, or even the boiler downstairs.
Yeah, there were, for an example, Bobby Mackey's. Great location. Fun. Lots of fun.
Fun location. Fun location.
Yeah.
I can't honestly say I got any experience here. I spent the night in the place and fell asleep.
We got some experiences there, but one of the things I noticed is how close it is to the road. I mean, you have barely enough space to park a car between the front door. Did you pay attention
to the fact that the glasses that they claim that move by the ghost only move when a semi-truck or something large enough goes down the road?
Well, and the fact that the building's at an angle and and it's on stilts, so it's going to shake, and you're in an industrial area with a big metal junkyard down the street. During the day, you're going to get stuff. I mean, I don't know if that junkyard runs all night, but some of them do.
I loved the place, though. I'm not going to down Bobby Mackey's. I went there twice. It's a great place. I just never really got any activity that was impressive. I got one EVP down in the what do they call it, the hell room or whatever, down in the
I don't know what they call it. We down by, there's a holding cell down there near where we got
near the holding cell. I got one EVP out of there that I couldn't explain, and that was by accident. We were running cameras and walking down there and showing the place that I was going to spend the night in for a YouTube thing. And when we were running the camera, I heard some guy that said, "Get the fuck out." And the guy stopped and said, "Did you hear that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I heard that. It came from over there, but that's it. That's all I got."
I just wonder where that well comes out, and if it could have been somebody near the river
on the other side.
Yeah, just up in the tunnel, not tunnel, but the pipe where it leads out to the Licking River.
And it could be people on the other side screwing with you, just like Waverly Hills. Waverly Hills body shoot, the reflection from the outside will go up the body shoot even in dark, right? Because of the cars down the road that move back and forth. So it consistently looks like somebody's going to walk up towards you, and you can hear people outside. We tested it. So are you really hearing anybody in that body shoot, or is it just your eyes playing tricks on you and somebody outside?
Well, there was people who said that they felt bad when they grew up and found out that the people over there were sick. But they said, yeah, when we lived over there, they go, yeah, people would yell out and we would yell back at them to shut up. I was like, oh no, this is not very nice. But yeah, I mean, so if they would yell, if they could hear them yelling at their homes, then more than likely at their homes, you could hear them over there.
Oh yeah, and it is incredibly close to apartment complexes and houses.
Oh yeah. And it's incredibly close to a main road.
Yeah.
So,
and again, I'm not dissing the place. I love the place. I've been there like 8, 9 times, but
I've been there once, and then I really haven't been there. I've been to the entrance that when it was in the when you had to go through the golf course. Been down there. It was closed off, but that's as far as I got.
Oh, I loved the place. Tina was a great lady. She always took good care of me and the groups that went in there. And it's a wonderful place. It's just got a history and it's kind of creepy. And you have fun running around. You can get lost really quick, which is kind of cool. It's just like the Ohio State Reformatory. I haven't had very many real experiences at the Reformatory, and I can explain most of the experiences people have at the Reformatory. But I love the Reformatory. I keep going back every year. It's a cool place.
Well, you're close.
Yep.
You know, so you might as well. So I'd like to thank you so much for coming on tonight. And can you tell everybody where they can find you?
You can always find me on Facebook under Christopher Houston. I'm publishing 2 books that I'm going to promote on No BS, which is on Carl's network, Born TV on Rumble. I'm usually there every Sunday. It depends on my schedule lately. Sometimes I miss, sometimes I don't, but I always have informative stuff when I do show up. We're going to have some live videos, believe it or not, coming out throughout that, so pay attention to it. You're going to see some shocking realities about what you're purchasing in your stores, how economics are controlling your situations. You're also going to see some funny little videos that we're going to make fun of some of these ridiculous retards. We're going to have some paranormal stuff in that. It's all across the board, guys. So in this summer, we're even going to blow shit up for you. So you'll enjoy that. We're going to create a real EMF gun to show you how EMF signal actually can be utilized and how broadcast signals affect you and so forth for the paranormal. So a lot of different things going on this summer. I encourage you to pay attention to that. And all in all, just keep an eye out for things. I have a show that's going to be airing here in 2 or 3 months. You'll see a live on Carl's network talking a little bit more about it. That will be actually on the History Channel. So I encourage you to look at that too.
So everybody, when they're talking about Carl's network, that's right here, the Bill of Rights Network. So make sure you join us and check it out. You can join me every Monday night at 7 p.m. Central right here for the Paranormal Pride. And I'm taking off on Monday to go see my kids. I just don't know which one right now. So that's the first thing. Join us here tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Central for Paranormal Nation Radio Not So Normal, when Carl, Ron, and I have on guests Grant and Shay. They're going to come back. They moved from Kentucky to Gulf Shores, so they're right across the state line from us. So it'll be fun having them on again, and we'll talk to them about what's going on there. So what?
Oh, and join me again this summer to learn how to build a greenhouse, how a hydroponic system works, how to survive during any situation, what to store, when to store, and how to do it, and how to go to my website to order what you need.
Perfect. And if you look behind him, you can see where he's testing some hydroponic equipment now.
Yeah, I got a bunch of it over here. I just talked about it on the last episode. So look me up on Rumble TV on
Born TV.
Yeah, Born TV on Rumble.
Yep.
I don't know why I said Rumble TV, because I'm tired.
I know. I understand. And I'd like to thank you so much for coming on, and look forward to seeing everything that you're going to be offering us this summer. So thank you, everyone, and have a good night.